All right, folks, looks like we are live on Facebook. I'm trying to make sure things are good on Instagram. And if anybody is watching this on Instagram, please give me a thumbs up or a wave or something to let me know that that connection is working. I know Facebook is working. I'm not 100% sure on Instagram. So let's see what we can do here to get that going. And that's not working for me. So I am going to try to get this going here this evening, but it is having a little bit of difficulty for me on Instagram. And we're going to try to get this going so folks can watch us there. Checking the connection. So it looks like we are logging into Instagram now. There we go. Okay, so it is good to, there we go. Got confirmation that's working. All right, apologize for the small technical delay here. It is so good to be doing this again after the weekend that we had. Those of you that was able to interact with down in Palmer at the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering, man, what a weekend that was, right? So good to see so many of you in person, so good to be out and about and hearing airplanes fly over, seeing things happen and talking to the vendors. It was a great weekend. I am still trying to recover. I got back home late last night and playing catch up today. And so an incredible event, and if you were not able to make it, you missed out. This year we had the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering at the Alaska State Fairground instead of in Anchorage, and went great. Had activities out at the airport, there at the fairgrounds, a lot of other things happening around the city of Palmer, around that event, so very fun time. And as I mentioned, the opportunity to visit and talk with a lot of you. I appreciate folks kind of stopping me and saying hello, and had been watching these live updates for the past year and a half or so. I started these back in 2019. But in the world of COVID, they've become a little more popular. And so just wanted to say thank you for those of you that made an effort to stop me and say hello. That was really good. So a few things I want to talk about this time around. First of all, who won the airplane? I get that question an awful lot. So Mike Donahue in Montana won the airplane. And let me clear up a few things right quick. I've seen some interactions on social media, folks talking about, well, nobody in Alaska ever wins this thing. It's a hoax. It's it's all staged and all that. That's not true. Obviously, it's not a hoax. Obviously, there's some very strict rules that we have to comply with for the state of Alaska. They're gaming laws. We cannot limit who wins the airplane. We cannot restrict the number of tickets that are sold. Whether we hold on to tickets at the end, when they're available until they are gone. State law prohibits us from holding on to tickets until the event. The notion of a different price for a different person, that's not acceptable either. We are able to give discounts if you buy a group of tickets, but we cannot charge you a certain price and then another person a different price. That's against the law. There's a lot of things this is not an easy thing to accomplish and to pull off. There's a lot of regulations, and we have board members that have signed their name to make sure that things are done according to the law and done fairly, and they would be the ones who would be going to jail if something was found to not be done the right way. So I wanted to kind of clear that up just a little bit here from the very beginning. Something else I want to clear up is that about half, it's almost split right down the middle, of the airplanes we have raffled off throughout the years have gone to people in Alaska. So this notion that nobody in Alaska ever wins, that's not true. Yes, there are people from outside the state that win. Mike Donahue in Montana won the airplane on Sunday, and you can be rest assured that he is a happy camper today. Something else I want to clear up with the raffle is that it is a fundraiser for the Alaska Airmen's Association. While it is important for us to to get vendors to participate, to showcase a lot of workmanship and craftsmanship from the folks who build these airplanes for us. We purchase these airplanes from those folks. We send out a request for proposal. The board decides which proposal they're going to go with. There is a lot of money that has changed hands, and a lot of vendors contribute their products to the aircraft to help keep that cost down. But the main reason the Alaska Airmen's Association raffles off an airplane is a fundraiser to help fund our operations and to help the scholarship fund. It helps pay my part-time salary to do government and legislative affairs. So that's the primary purpose of the raffle. And that's all I'm going to talk about, those things. We're going to move on to other topics this evening. It was a great event. As I mentioned before, I did a legislative update on Saturday morning, and it was great to have a lot of people in attendance there. We had a statewide representative that was there, and we had Congressman Don Young in the audience. And so, along with about 45 other folks there on Saturday. So I'm going to briefly talk through some of my talking points from Saturday morning. A lot of them we've already briefly mentioned in the past. Was going to try to record that on Saturday and then play that for you tonight, but the acoustics were horrible. I couldn't quite get things figured out the best way to do that, and so I'm just going to give you a recap from that event. So the FAA is in the process of what's called a FASI, F-A-A-S-I, FAA Safety Initiative. And this came about because the NTSB roundtable that was held in Anchorage back in September of 2019, the NTSB was very concerned about the accidents that we were having here in the state, very concerned about the fact that some of them were preventable. Most of them actually were preventable. And so they tasked the FAA, they requested that the FAA form a group and figure out what can be done about that. So in October of 2020, the FAA chairman held a virtual event, an Alaska Aviation Safety Summit. And what came out of that event is this Alaska Aviation Safety Initiative. Now the FAA has already released their interim report. And so if you go into your search engine and type FAASI interim report, and you'll be able to find it. Some interesting stuff in that report. One thing that struck me is just about every safety initiative that the FAA was talking about that they have done in recent years came about because of industry either participation, heavily participating in it, or industry requesting that initiative to be taken on and considered by the FAA. And so it's an excellent case of how industry, folks like myself and like the other alphabet groups, and how you as an individual has requested certain things from the FAA that we think are major safety improvements that can be done, and then the FAA follows through with some of that, sometimes slowly, sometimes not near to the degree that we would hope, but that report is very interesting. Now, what the FAA is asking for is they're asking for feedback. They want to know what you think needs to happen in Alaska so that we can be safer with our operations here in the state. And so, if you just search FAASI interim report, there will be some information in that report about how you can participate. The FAA is scheduling interviews, 1 hour interview where you can go in and you can virtually go in and explain to them what you think is important safety-wise in the state and what we need the FAA to provide for us so that we can improve safety here in Alaska. So that was one of the main topics that I talked about. I also talked about our 2206 at the Clear Air Force Station and that new long-range discriminating radar that they are putting in there. We have had some serious complications with the TFR that's been issued there. And to the FAA's credit, they finally got on the ball and got that TFR to where it was being depicted correctly, not only on their own website, but in third-party apps. The holdup was the shape file that the FAA generates that actually will display the TFR graphically had not been done. and for a lot of reasons and excuses on certain levels, that it was not done for almost a complete month since that TFR had been activated. I interfaced with several contacts within the FAA, explained to them the hazard that was, the complications and the frustrations that we were having as aviators because of that, and they worked pretty hard to resolve that, and it took a couple of days, but we finally got it to where it's at least depicted correctly on third-party apps like ForeFlight, Garmin Pilot, SkyVector, FlyQ, all those apps that you may use. Now, what we're still working with is some timing issues, and the TFR is not being, it's being shown as active when it's not active, and that's a little bit of a concern. So we're still working that issue just a little bit, but again, it took a lot of my time bouncing around within different contacts within the FAA, and for the FAA then to internally figure out how they can make this happen. And to show you the dedication of a few FAA employees to get this done right and to fix it, was on the phone with a FAA employee on his time off at 11 o'clock last Friday night. There's not many folks that you can reach out to fix a problem, even in the private sector, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, and have some things taken care of and resolved. So kudos to the FAA employees that helped us get that fixed. And again, we've still got a few issues that we're still working to fix that, but much better than it has been. I do encourage you to read the NOTAM. Go to the FAA's TFR website and look those up if you fly throughout the interior, or if you fly out from Anchorage through Windy Pass. You need to look at that NOTAM and be aware of the times that it's activated in the areas that are hot at any given particular time. Speaking of NOTAMs, we know that they're difficult to read. We have some military exercises going on here in the state, rather large military exercises. We've got a carrier out in the Gulf of Alaska, a lot of interesting airframes flying around here in the state that we normally do not see here, that the Navy has brought in, and some of our, quote, coalition partners. That's code for other countries that we consider allies that train with us. And one of the things that the military trains for is the denial of GPS. And we all know that we have to train the way that we operate, and the military is no different in that. And most likely, one of the first things that's going to be disabled in a shooting war will be the navigation infrastructure. And so the military practices that from time to time. They do that by jamming the GPS signal. And so we've got an issue. If you've seen this GPS interference testing NOTAM that's out there, you look at it, and I'm looking down at my iPad right now again at the graphic, and it still boggles my mind that the FAA, in a, quote, abundance of caution, has told us that GPS signal will be unreliable very long ways away, 208 nautical miles radius from the source, which is out by Eielson Air Force Base, 50 feet above the ground. Now, one of the things the FAA does not take into consideration is terrain. And if you know anything about the terrain of Alaska, we have a few hills. Let's just call them what they are. They're mountains. They are the largest mountains on the North American continent. And this GPS testing is in the interior of Alaska, and what's happening with this NOTAM is that they're showing down in the Palmer-Wasilla area that 50 feet above the ground, GPS could be unreliable. The laws of physics would really have to be bent and broken to make that happen. My understanding is that this GPS interference testing is from a ground-based source. There are possibilities in the future that there will be airborne, and when they are airborne, that does expand the envelope quite a bit. Our concern at the Alaska Airmen's Association is that NOTAMs like this, it's false information. It's not entirely accurate, and because we are telling people something that is way above and beyond what the realm of possibility would be, people are not impacted by the testing because They're in an area that it's just not going to happen, but yet they are told that it could. And so we're going to desensitize folks, and we've been doing this for several years, and I've been complaining about this to the FAA and encouraging the military to fight from their side to get the FAA to accurately depict what the ramifications of this testing is really going to be. We're not there yet, and it's pretty frustrating, to be honest with you. There are some operational security concerns. We obviously don't want to have very specific and accurate heat maps or splatter maps of what is actually going to be that radio propagation, because we don't want our enemies to know what our capabilities really are. But come on, do we really want to hide behind this as being operational security when we look at this map and it tells us that in Palmer, 50 feet above the runway, this weekend that the GPS signal is going to be unreliable when it's a line of sight signal from a ground-based source, and it cannot penetrate through the largest mountain range in North America, but yet that's what we're being told as aviators. So I would encourage you to continue to look at these NOTAMs. Do not dismiss them. Do not blow them off. I know it's hard, it's difficult to understand and comprehend these NOTAMs, but my concern is at one point in time, someone is going to be affected by this NOTAM, and they didn't pay attention to it because, well, every other time they said the sky was falling, nothing happened. And every other time they cried wolf, nothing happened. Be careful, because at some point in time, it will. Trust me. Something else I talked about on Saturday was the Anchorage Airspace redesign that is coming. Look for opportunities to provide your public comments. There is a desire to put an ILS approach into runway 16 at Elmendorf. They're at J-Bear, and the missed approach procedure is going to really be a hard thing to figure out and interfere with the Part 93 airspace, to interfere with Merrill Field specifically. And so there's going to be the potential of an airspace redesign in the Anchorage Bowl. This is going to be an opportunity for us to be able to provide our feedback about what we think would make it better. So look for an opportunity to provide that feedback as it gets closer to that event, and when more information is known about that, trust me, I will let you know. Keep an eye on our social media, keep an eye on your membership emails, of which, by the way, you are a member of the Alaska Airmen's Association. Please, yes, maybe, hopefully. If you're not, go to our website and find out more how to do that. But look for information about how you can participate in helping the FAA redesign the airspace in Anchorage, so it not only benefits the military and the heavy cargo carriers and the airlines, but also benefits general aviation as we come and go out of Lake Hood and Merrill and Birchwood, Campbell Lake, all those places there in the Anchorage Bowl. Okay, so the next item, Alaska weather. I'm talking about the weather program that's on TV, on some of the public television stations around the state. It's also on YouTube. It is a great program, just a few short minutes of a overarching statewide look at weather. I try to go back and watch it on YouTube because, frankly, my schedule doesn't really allow me to watch it on TV. But it helps me get a good overall picture of what the statewide weather is, so that when I need to go flying, I already have that information in my head. And so when I do my briefings, I am able to already have some of that knowledge. So there's a schedule change. If you watch that on KTOO 360 TV, those of us here in Alaska know what that is. There's a time change to that. It'll be at 6:30 p.m. Starting May 20th. But it's still going to be on YouTube, and that'll be after 6 p.m. every day. And just do a search for Alaska weather and National Weather Service. Dave Percy is the usual host there, and I've always appreciated Dave and how he can give us a wealth of aviation weather information in a very short, concise way with some really good graphics. The other thing is the GA survey. Every year, Alaskans are asked to participate in the GA survey. Pilots in the lower 48 are randomly sampled, and not every pilot in the lower 48 is asked to participate in that, but every aircraft owner in the state of Alaska is asked to participate every year. So if you ignored that postcard, please don't. We need that information. That helps us understand what the fleet is, understand what the equipage is, helps us figure out the way to better understand what's happening in the aviation sector here in Alaska specifically, not just in the lower 48. What really helps us is that gives us a better idea of how many hours were flown so that when we have accidents, we can look at that with the right statistics because base that on accidents per 100,000 flight hours. If we do not have an accurate count, that number will seem to be worse than it potentially could be. So that's one of the main reasons why it's important. It helps me because that information, the results of that survey are public. It helps me as an advocate for you in government legislative affairs to understand more about who we have in the state and how often they fly and what kind of hardware are they flying with and what kind of equipment do they have in their aircraft. So please don't blow off that survey. If you want to know how to get to that survey, I can provide that stuff for you. If you were there on Saturday, there was a QR code that I flashed up on the overhead on that screen, and folks were taking pictures of that to be able to go right to that survey. So again, just what we've done tonight is just a brief recap of what I talked about for over an hour on Saturday morning at the Great Alaska Aviation Gathering. It was good to have Congressman Don Young in the audience. I gave him an opportunity to speak just a bit, and he appreciates aviation in Alaska. He is working for our interests there. Senator Sullivan was at the event as well, and Governor Dunleavy was there at the event as well. So Senator Murkowski sent her regrets. She was not able to attend. She was not in the state over the weekend, but she said that if she was in the state, she would have loved to attend it. So it was a great event. Not sure if we're going to have it there again or not, or if we're going to go back to Anchorage. That was the topic of conversation all weekend long. What's the plan for next year? It's so great that we're back to doing this again. What are we going to do next year? The answer is we're not really sure yet. So we're still compiling those survey questions and results of feedback that we received throughout the weekend. So with that, I'm just going to kind of wrap things up here. I've seen a lot of folks pop up, a lot of names here that I'm recognizing. It's good to see a lot of you here tuning in. If anybody's got any specific questions or anything that I can address, I'll give you a few seconds to go ahead and type those in and send them off to me right quick. But I haven't seen any throughout the talk here for the past 20 minutes or so. So if anybody's got a question, now's your chance. Feel free to go ahead and email me. You can go to alaskaairmen.org and you can find my contact information there. And love to talk to you. Love to help you answer questions. Got a lot of folks talking to me about insurance this weekend. A lot of folks asking questions about traveling through Canada, if there's been any changes with that. No real updates on any changes that have happened there. Talked to several people who were able to make it through, but then talked to a few others that were having difficulties and were turned back. So it's not really sure about the consistency with that. I think a lot of it has to do with paperwork and reasons for your travel. But anyway, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Again, it was very good to see a lot of you there this weekend and look forward to becoming a little more active this summer. Please, again, just want a quick reminder, be careful if you're traveling around here in the state off the highway system, and just be conscientious of where you go and how you interact with a lot of the remote communities. There are still some local travel restrictions in a lot of those communities and some health mandates that they would ask for you to comply with before you come into their community. So with that, I think I will kind of sign off here. Question about where to get a seaplane rating in Alaska. There's several places that'll do that. If you send me a message offline, I'll see if we can't get you a list of a few, depending on what part of the state you're interested in. So again, really enjoyed seeing a lot of you this weekend in person as the world slowly gets back to normal, whatever that normal is going to be from this point going forward. So good night, everybody, and we'll keep in touch.